Hello from Santiago de Compostela. I'm Patrick Hughes and this is Planet Patrick. I'm Patrick Hughes and this is Planet Patrick. And this is the Church of St. Francis. I'm staying in the convent which has been converted into a hotel, but it's only 300 meters, something like that, from the cathedral. It just shows you the concentration of Catholicism that there was in this particular city, not only because of the people here being largely Catholic, but because of the Camino, that pilgrimage route which came here to see the body of St. James or Santiago. Naturally, there's somebody playing the bagpipes. They could be Galician bagpipes. Somewhere behind me is the square in front of the main cathedral. But I just stopped because I love these flowers. They're so gorgeous. I'm heading now to the Mass. The entrance to the cathedral is not that very impressive front door. It's in fact round the back here, and because this is a holy year, you can access through a smaller door, the Porta Umile, I understand it's called, which gets you an additional benefit. So I'm here an hour before Mass. Forget about it. You can't see it on the screen. If you've walked here from Ireland or France or Italy or somewhere else, tough bananas on you, Bob. So that's tough. So maybe tomorrow morning it might be possible to come. This is people waiting at another door and the sign says the church is full. I don't feel bad for me because I came for 2 days. I hoped on the Feast of the Assumption to be able to go in and to see this great big thurible of incense called the Voto Fumiero. And of course there's no guarantee that that will even be used. But I do feel sorry for people who've walked the hundreds of kilometers to get here who can't get in, or who can't see it on a big TV screen. It's a shame that there's no alternative. Inside all of the windows there's food options and little pinchos up on the bar. This is the right time to come out, around 8 o'clock. I don't know whether the bigger crowds are because people are coming out of church or because the restaurants have just opened at 8 o'clock. I suspect it might be the restaurants on this occasion. Mass probably isn't over yet. There is a distinct aroma of grass, weed, cannabis. Is this what they call the golden hour? I really like how people maybe have picked up these little pebbles on their walk on the Camino, this great pilgrimage to get here to Santiago. And they've left it here on the steps of the cathedral. How many of these little trains have we seen on this particular journey through France, Spain and Portugal? And they all look like the same one. This white one. This one's absolutely chock full of people. Hola! They're having a blast anyway. You might be wondering where I'm legging it to. Early in the morning, after I wasn't able to get into the cathedral yesterday evening. Well, Mass is on. A liturgy is taking place at 9:30. There was one at 7:30, but I was just about awake. They said there's works going on. They said if I showed up 20 minutes in advance of this one, I should be able to get in. So I'm going 45 minutes in advance to try and guarantee it. If you're wondering why I'm carrying this Roy Cropper bag, there was a sign outside the cathedral that said people with backpacks won't be allowed to get in. And I usually carry a little day backpack. I want to minimize any risk of not getting in today. Okay, let's see if it works this time. This is the door I tried to get in yesterday, and which I'm told is the main entrance, but it's closed. I'll go the other side and see what happens. I made it in at last. So I did manage to make it in with the 9:30 Mass, which is great, but sadly there was no Bota Fumiero. There's no predicting when it's going to happen. They do say that it will happen on the Feast of the Assumption, but not at which liturgy, so there's not much that I can do about that. And I think I was lucky to get here early because if you can see this, the queues have started to build for people wanting to go in and take photographs. Hopefully you enjoyed the little bit of film that I did inside and you could see what the cathedral was like. You know, it really is something very special. And as I've said in my other videos about religious sites like Lourdes, I don't think that you always have to be super religious or spiritual or of a particular faith to be able to enjoy the architecture, the sense of awe that these buildings were designed to bring. Is it possible that in the coming together of people with a sense of peace that there is something positive in that? Yes, that doesn't have to be religious, of course. That can be all kinds of other ways of getting together, ways to be part of a family. But I like all of those situations. So this was this one. This is Santiago de Compostela. One thing you do see here is the use of this Celtic font. It's kind of like a Irishy font that you'll see used a lot around Irish dance and Irish music. But it's used a lot here because the people here see themselves as being Celtic. They're Gallegos. Perhaps see themselves is the wrong term. Perhaps the right term is they are Celtic. They're our cousins, our Irish cousins. It's about 2 hours since I came through the square in front of the cathedral, heading to that 9:30 Mass. And when I came through, it was very, very quiet. It was still the cool of the morning. It's really starting to fill up. Let me say something about the great peregrinations or walks, pilgrimage walks if you like, of medieval Europe. This one is probably one of the most famous, known as the Camino or the Camino de Santiago, the Way of St. James in various different languages. And this one is made up of a series of different pilgrimage routes, starting from different countries. The Camino of Santiago is not necessarily one route, one single route, though it's often spoken about as being one. It's a series of interconnecting networks of pilgrimage routes that ultimately have as their end goal this place, the Cathedral of Santiago, the Cathedral of St. James. It was the 9th century when it was claimed that the remains of St. James had been located. And they were moved here to Santiago, named after him, Saint Iago. Iago is the word for James. It was here that his remains were taken and where they're purported to lie, here in the cathedral. And visiting the remains of a saint or a holy person was not at all unusual in medieval Europe. It was believed that you were granted particular indulgences if you undertook the walk. Of course, this was only one of many different kinds of walks that were undertaken in medieval Christianity. People would walk to Rome. In a special way, I'm kind of a peregrine as well. I'm also a pilgrim who has come here, although not a particularly religious one and not one that's looking for an indulgence. And I haven't walked the 1,000 kilometers or more to get here. So I've just dropped in. But it's very nice to be here and to witness this kind of ongoing sense of faith, even if it isn't about faith in a particular religion, faith in the idea that there's a journey that happens in order to come to a place. With modern travel, and I say this as a travel writer and a travel vlogger, sometimes we get on a plane and we arrive, consume something, and then we're out of there super quickly. It's something we buy, and we go to a place and we have its food and we taste its wine and we witness some of its people doing a dance and we're done. And to some extent, is there anything wrong with that? Well, we could discuss that. Give me your views in the comments below if you like. But with something like the Camino, including doing it in the modern day, this is slow travel. This is people crossing a continent by foot to get to a place. And so it gives that place a different sensibility. It makes that place into the culmination of a series of hopes, the culmination of pains and aches and sore feet and blisters, that here in this kind of golden temple to Christianity, in this golden temple to St. James, there is something which is shining for the people who have travelled. And maybe
it's not so much then about St. James, but about the agglomeration, about the coming together of all those hopes, fears and prayers. And maybe it's in that moment, that crystallization, that there's something which isn't temporal. It's not about, I've reached it now, and I've reached it now with these other people. It's about saying, I've reached this place in the same way as millions of other people have down through the centuries. I am at one with them. And it's in that sort of stepping outside of the temporal that there's something very interesting going on here. There's something stretching across the centuries. This is not about jumping, dumping, and consuming. And I think that makes it really interesting. Really interesting. I hope I've been able to convey that to you. Anyway, give me your comments and thoughts. I want to hear what you think about it. And meanwhile, I'm off to go and consume something else.
Thank you so much for joining me for this destination report visiting Santiago de Compostela in Galicia in Spain. It's been a pleasure making this video. I hope you'll join me again soon for the next one. In the meantime, take care and bye bye. I'm Patrick Hughes and this is Planet Patrick.